I was going down the back chute at Knoxville and my first time in the sprint car. And I remember Dave Hesmer and Randy Martin split me down the back chute, and I thought I was flying, and I wasn't even close to going fast. These guys, they were out of sight within seconds. I didn't know how I would ever get up to the speed of those guys.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Knoxville Night in America!
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Knoxville Nights. I am Josh Gerlach. I'm joined here with Kade Higday, and we've got Matt Moro on the show with us. No Blake Walker. I was joking. He got a little nervous having a Knoxville Hall of Famer on with us, and actually his internet went out. So no Blake. Maybe we'll have Blake later. We'll see if he pops in, but very excited to have Matt Moro join us. Matt, how are you doing tonight?
Doing great. Yeah, good day working out in the race shop. So it's always makes those days go fast, and it's always fun being out here.
Oh, yeah. Ready for opening night yet?
We're getting close. We still have a lot to do. I mean, no matter how close you are, there's always stuff to do, but we got cars ready. We're getting engines picked up this week. Just built a couple of wings today, got decals put on cars. So, yeah, getting close.
Heck yeah. Kade, I know we were talking before we hit record here. I know you're getting close as well. It's that time of the year.
Yep, everybody's getting close. I feel like Matt said, you think you're ready to go racing, and then you go to load the trailer and you realize all the shit that you forgot to do.
Yeah. Just don't forget to put the transponder on. That's what I'm here to remind you about.
That's
Never
right.
gonna let that happen again.
Sue me.
All right, boys, before we dive in, make sure you do hit like and subscribe. Create yourself a Dirt Vision account. We are free on Dirt Vision as well. Leave us 5 stars. Somebody left us a 1-star review on Apple Podcasts. Give us 5 stars for Blake.
Dude.
Yeah, I know. Cade's going to cry tonight now that I told him that. So go give some 5 stars and help block that one out. We do have some fun information to share today. We do have a brand new announcement. We are going to be joining the Track Threads lineup for the 2026 season. Both, I think, does Ryan have shirts, Matt, in the Track Threads, or is it just JJ?
It's just JJ. We'll talk to Ryan here and see about getting Giles stuff there too.
That'd be awesome. Yeah, then we can have the whole Matt Moro Racing squad on there. You're going to get to have or be able to pick up Knoxville Nights merch now at the Track Threads trailer, and you can also go to shoptrackthreads.com. You can place pre-orders today. So pretty excited to be joining that family there. Also, reminder, in just 3 weeks, we have the Knoxville Raceway season opener on April 18th. Free admission for all general admission seats. There's no reason to not join us at the racetrack. Kade would be sad about that, too. Speaking of Kade, you tentatively have some plans this weekend, sir.
Yeah, we're going to take the Mike Lang 305 down to Burlington. Hopefully, weather pending. It looks like trash right now, but we all know how the Midwest is. It could be something totally different on Thursday before we go race on Friday. So fingers crossed. We got a lot of stuff left to do on that thing, but it's all pretty small stuff. Should be able to knock it out pretty quick.
Yeah, hopefully it clears up, because I would like to join you out there. But yeah, it's not looking great here as of Monday. So hopefully it turns itself around. That's all I had for a little housekeeping stuff. So Mr. Moro, let's dive into you, sir. Known you for quite some time. I know that as I was giving you some trash here before we hit record, that you were a very popular guy when we announced that we were going to have you on. Just want to hear a little bit about your story, kind of getting started down in racing just in general, and then also when you got going at Knoxville. How did all that get started for you and your family?
So my family's been a race family. My grandfather was a racer. He raced in Stewart, stock cars. I'd say in the 60s and into the early 70s, but my grandfather passed away really young, and he passed away at 36 years old in 1974. So I never got to meet my grandfather. And that put a delay in my dad's racing, because my dad was 17 years old when that happened. So my dad didn't get to start racing until 1983, and I just got to tag along with him everywhere we went. And I caught the racing bug early, like really early. And I had more fun just hanging out with the guys at the race shop and hanging out after the races and going to the races. And my dad took it real seriously, and he was a big go-karter back in the early 80s. Then he got into late models. So we were actually big late model family. We liked the full fendered stuff. And I still do to this day, love watching late models. Wish I would have got a chance to drive one of them. But then my dad got an opportunity to drive for Bob Trossel, and that was in 1992, and a 360 car. And my dad decided he wanted to do it. And then there we were at Knoxville in 1992, and we've never left.
That's
Talk
cool.
about, did you start racing the go-karts then when you first started coming up?
I did. I was really late to get into racing. I didn't start racing until I was like 15 years old. I wasn't good in school. It turns out I was good in school. I just didn't try, and because my parents wouldn't let me race unless I got good grades. Well, I lied to them one year, and I didn't get a report card sent home because I threw it away. And so I told them I had really good grades. So Bruce Williams took me racing go-karts that summer, and once I found out what racing was all about, actually driving them, I then got really good grades because I knew I had to keep the grades up to go racing. So yeah, I didn't start racing go-karts till I was 15 years old. And then I raced go-karts till, I raced with your dad, Kade. I mean, we had a blast. We raced the indoor races at the Dome, and then we'd do the Coke Syrup at Vets. We raced all around the outdoor races and everything. But then I was 18 years old and I got into a sprint car. And it turned out that I bought a car from Bob Trossel, and my dad and Bill Keller put an engine together for me. And we just went out and had a great time. And man, I'm glad that all worked out, because here I am 30 years later, 31 years later.
So how early in your dad's sprint car career then was it when you started getting involved in the sprint car?
Day one. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Anything my dad did, I kind of followed with him. So I loved working on the car. Like one of his first sprint cars, him and I painted the thing in the shop, painted it all up. It looked like the DuPont. My dad was a body man, had a good sized body shop, and was sponsored by DuPont. So we had it looking like the Jeff Gordon DuPont Rainbow Warriors car. And that looked really cool. The car was awesome, and we were really bright and wild colors, especially for sprint car racing at that time. Everything was really dull and bland. Just you basically, most of the guys had just silver top wings, didn't do any painting on the stuff. Bodies were just the fiberglass color. That it's changed so much because of the decals and powder coating and all that. But yeah, everything was really bland, but my dad's car just really stood out. So I got involved with working on the cars, and that was one of the things I really knew how to work on cars. I wasn't great at it when I first started, but I learned how to work on them with my dad and hanging out at Bob Trossel, and Bob Trossel is one of the best that's ever been involved in sprint car racing. So you learn little things, and that just kind of taught me how to do it. And I was big on the late nights working on stuff, so it just worked out good. That's why still to this day I'm a kind of a night owl.
I was going to say some things have never changed, because I know,
No.
Kade, we've had to check out of there pretty early in the morning a couple nights, and they're still chilling down at the end of the pit road there.
Cade's made it to the end many a times, and we've had to leave before Cade plenty of times too. So.
Yeah. Allegedly, there was a track cone that maybe went traveling one time, but we don't talk about that.
No, nothing about that.
So
like
early
it's always-
on,
It's always a battle between us and Matt to see who's gonna hold out the longest.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sometimes the Garners, I feel like I've seen,
Yeah.
they
Yep.
stick around sometimes too, but yeah.
Absolutely.
We've
They
got a
seem to have thrown in the towel a little bit this last year. So
They have.
Yeah.
Yeah, the 24H and the 2Ms. It's pretty funny. So getting going with your career, and it sounds like, I guess, your dad's career at Knoxville as well. How did those early years go for you guys?
So my dad started really late. He was in his late 30s when he first started racing sprint cars. So we know that this is a young man's sport, always really has been. So he did okay. He struggled at Knoxville, but seems like everywhere else he went, he was really good. He won races at Burlington. He won races at the Iowa State Fairgrounds. He could go a lot of tracks and do really well, but Knoxville just he struggled there for some reason. And not that he was bad, he actually did okay. When I started 18 years old, my first night was we had a practice night earlier the week before, and I didn't know what I got myself into. I thought I made a horrible mistake talking these guys into helping me go racing. And I was going down the back chute at Knoxville and my first time in the sprint car. And I remember Dave Hesmer and Randy Martin split me down the back chute. And I thought I was flying and I wasn't even close to going fast. These guys, they were out of sight within seconds. And I didn't know how I would ever get up to the speed of those guys. And it just took laps and laps and laps to do that. But we went opening night to Knoxville, drew number one, and I'm starting on the pole of the heat race. My dad comes over and says, "Well, you're going to start the tail. You're not starting on the pole of the heat race." And I'm kind of a little ornery, especially back then, and I decided he's not going to tell me I'm going to start the tail of it, so they can drive around me. So I started on the pole of the heat race. Luckily, it was so narrow that no one could pass anybody. And I remember Van Hooklam, I think, ran second to me in that heat race. I won my heat race, but he hit me going into the corner every single lap, just banged into my rear bumper. And that's when I knew to get back on the gas because I was going way too fast down those straightaways for what I could control, and I knew that was my sign, I guess, to get back on the throttle. So I ended up winning the heat race, my first one at Knoxville. Pissed my dad off royally. He was awfully happy that I won the heat race, but then he was really mad that I didn't listen to him, and he told me that if I did that again, we wouldn't be racing anymore. So I listened to him from then on.
I could see that.
Yeah.
How long was your learning curve? I know everybody has one in sprint car racing. Some take a little longer than others. I still tear up my fair share of shit. But how long did it take you kind of to get the hang of it and start clicking off some good races?
Well, I mean, honestly, your learning curve never ends because the race cars change all the time and the rules change and the tires and the wings. So you're learning every single night and every single year, it just seemed like. But for me to feel comfortable in a car, it really took me probably 3 years. My first year, 96, I had that heat race win. And then at the Iowa State Fairgrounds, I ran second one night and I ran second one night at Knoxville. Those were, I wouldn't say flukes, but kinda. I mean, I wasn't up to speed with the rest of those guys at that time, and I had good equipment, so I can't blame it on that. It just was hard for me to make 2 good laps and let alone make 18 good laps. So had a pretty good first year, but then just as I felt like I was getting comfortable, my dad decides he's not racing anymore and he puts me in the 410 car. And so then 97, I go out there in the 410 class, and what a rude awakening that was. I mean, I wasn't comfortable in the 360 completely. Then I go into the 410 class and raced the first full year in the 410 class. And, the first night, actually, I don't know, for some reason, when I didn't know anything and didn't know how it was supposed to be, it seems like I was better because my first night in the 410 class at Knoxville, I didn't lead the feature. I ran second in the feature for quite a while to Lance Blevins, and we had a lot of the outlaws there because they rained out wherever they were and ended up running second till like 5 or 6 to go. And then I ended up breaking a shock pin and ended up stuffing it in the fence pretty hard, and then struggled the whole rest of the year. Just couldn't get back on track after that. So yeah, so the learning curve, it took a long time because in 98, I wasn't very good again in 98. And then 99, we really started getting rolling. And in 99, we started winning a few races. And then really 2000 was probably my breakout year. 2000 was the best year I ever had driving, really.
And was that still in your stuff, or had you moved
That was my
into?
dad's stuff. So my
It
dad owned
was.
all that stuff all the way through 2000. It was the last year for my dad and I. My dad went through a divorce and decided he needed to concentrate on business, and my dad was spending a fortune for us to go racing. So understood that completely. But yeah, 2000 was my last year with my dad, and I mean, I wish we could have kept that going because who knows what we really could have done. I think in 2000 we won 6 races. We won 2 410 shows there at Knoxville. We won prelim night to the 360 Nationals. We ran second in the 360 Nationals to Wayne Johnson. We won the Dream Race at the Iowa State Fairgrounds. We won a race in Oski, I think 2 in Oski. We won up in Cresco, Iowa. We won down in Missouri. We had a great year going.
You've mentioned the fairgrounds a few times here already. That's one place where I wish that I would have gotten to more. I know you guys both. I think your son, didn't he race? Didn't Anthony race some in the
Yep.
305 there too?
Nope.
Did you guys all? Did you all
he
three
raced
get
a
to
dirt
race
truck.
against each other?
Yeah, in
Dirt
the dirt
truck,
truck
that's-
class. Yep.
That's what it was. Did you all three get to race each other in that?
We did. Yep. That was a really cool night. Just having my dad, I, and my son all race against each other.
Yeah. What was it like racing at the fairgrounds? Because unfortunately, if anybody doesn't know, that racetrack is completely gone now. It's been gone for a while, and I know your dad had a hand in helping promote and do some things at the fairgrounds as well. What did that place mean to you and your family? Because you guys had a pretty heavy presence there.
Absolutely. It meant a ton to us. And I'm going to tell you, the Iowa State Fairgrounds is by far my favorite racetrack I ever raced. It was a track that was so hard to drive. You were either good there or you weren't good there. There was really no in between. You had Danny Young used to win everything there when I first started going to sprint car races, and then you had Larry Penniger would win a lot, and then Josh Higday won a lot there, and then I started winning a lot there, and it just was awesome. Boob Thompson was good there, but the guys that struggled there always struggled. It was so hard to get the hang of it, and it was absolutely opposite of Knoxville Raceway. I love Knoxville Raceway. I mean, that's obviously where our heart is, but you didn't want to be smooth at Des Moines. There was no reason to be smooth, and the track had a lot of character in it. There was a huge dip getting into turn 1, and it would take that car and it just would upset that car. And in a 360, you could run a 360 wide open around there, and we're talking long straightaways and really tight corners, but you would just have to enter it and throw the car into the corner and let the thing bounce all the way up towards the fence, and the thing would grab and it would go. And man, it was a blast to race it, just because that's what I always thought sprint cars were. And sprint cars were that way everywhere before they got so nice equipment and such good engines and stuff like that. But yeah, I love the fairgrounds. When my dad promoted it, I raced a 305 there for a while and raced these dirt trucks. And I wish the track still was there. I mean, it was making a comeback. It was a tough deal. My dad was new at promoting, and man, there was some growing pains there, but they tried. Him and Eric Lundstrom and John Pat Dorian, they tried really, really hard, and their heart was in it. But you had 3 guys that never had done it before, and struggled at track prep, which everybody does. I mean, we're fortunate we have the Duncans, but the Duncans miss every once in a while. But you can't predict Mother Nature, and you can't change wind, and you can't change sun. So the Duncans have all these years of experience. These guys had 1 year, and they're trying 15 nights to get the racetrack in order. So yeah, I mean, it was tough for everybody, but it was a blast. It was a track where when we first got it going, I think there at the end of the previous people, there was 70 cars there, and we were up to, I think, 130 in the pit every night. So
Damn.
yeah.
Okay, did you ever
You
get to
touched-
race there, or do you remember much?
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I got to race there with Matt, actually.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
That's cool.
you kind of touched on it. You said you ran a 305 there. You didn't just run a 305. You pretty much dominated that deal.
Yeah.
How cool was that to have that run in the 305 clear to the end of the existence of that racetrack?
You know, we were, it was at the same time we were pretty solid in the 360 class. And the plan wasn't to run the 305. Carl Moyer, my boss at work and owner of Carl Chevrolet and Carl Performance, he wanted to build a 305 and see if they could get into that. So he built me a 305, and I ended up purchasing it from him. And we went out there and ran that. It was a nice piece. It was too nice of a piece, to be honest with you. I mean, it defeat the purpose of that Race Saver 305 class when you had and at that time it was almost a $20,000 305, which some of the guys we were racing with probably had six, seven, $8,000 305s, but it looked pretty. And they took it and they had it in their show at Wild Wades, and they took it to the PRI show. So, I mean, it had all the Brown and Miller lines on it. But the whole idea of that 305 class was, you know, the heads and the injection, you can only do so much. So, one, just because it looked good, really probably shouldn't run better than another. But it fit me. And I just, again, that racetrack fit me for some reason. So, you know, Tyler Thompson and I, and then this Clint Benson and, you know, Tyler Drucke, we all had a great race there. I mean, it came down to us four guys almost every night. And then Jason Martin came in there a few times and he was really fast. And it just was one of those deals that class I was helping trying to build it up, and they started off with like 10 cars. And so when I quit that class, I didn't run the full last season. I left that class because I told my dad I'd go till we had 18 full-time cars there. And once we got to 18, then I stopped. And I sold my engine to Corey Couts, and Corey went and ran that from there on. And then I just concentrated on Knoxville and ran more 410 stuff.
Sounds like we need Matt in a pro sprint one of these days, just for shits and giggles, don't you think, Kade?
Done. Never again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll
Yeah.
see. So you've mentioned a lot of very influential names that have touched on your career and helped you out through the years, and I'm going to bring up a couple more that we haven't gotten to yet. But you talked about Carl Moyer, Bob Trossel. Talk about those guys, Gil Sonner, Don Lamberti, and how they have influenced not only your career but even your race team. You know, post your driving. Dennis Albaugh, even now today as well.
Yeah. So I've been very fortunate over the years to be surrounded by very great people and very influential people, you know, and that's one of the things my dad helped line that up. I mean, these were people my dad knew, my grandfather knew. And so, and then one of the things is I just was so committed to this racing that, you know, I was there every week and always have been there every week. So these guys got to know who I was too. And so it kind of made a nice fit for like Don Lamberti and I when we teamed up together. And we teamed up together because I got in Gil Saunders' 47 car. And I got along so good with those guys. Donnie Saunders is still a great friend of mine to this day. And Donnie's boy, Corey, is a great friend. And I sure do miss those guys. I wish they still had a car there, but I understand after Gil passed, you know, they tried going a little bit, but you know, it was just tough for those
When
guys
was
to
that
keep.
stretch in the 47, Matt? Sorry to interrupt.
You know, I got in that car and I don't know the exact dates. I think I got in that car. It was for the 1,200-pound nationals or an outlaw show. I just remember it was a Friday I got into it because I had blown up my engine the week before and I was done. I was absolutely done racing sprint cars. I couldn't afford it. I was struggling financially, personally, and I had spent everything I had on racing, and it was done. And then they called me and asked me to drive that car. I believe that was 2003. I got in that car and I drove it for 3 years and had a blast with those guys and had some success. We had more. They had came off the Outlaw Tour and they had a kind of a laundry list of drivers in that car for the 2-3 years that it came off that Outlaw deal. And when I got there, they had a lot of used up equipment, but they had the desire to go racing. And so we were running rear ends that Donnie had to straighten axles and all, and we were running chassis that had been clipped. And not that those are all bad, because that's everybody had to do some of that back in those days. But it was just a little bit tougher, and we didn't have a great engine program to start with. And then Don Lamberti got back involved with that team, and it was awesome. I mean, we ended up getting a couple Kistler engines from the Lonnie Parsons team, and I think we ended up fourth or fifth in points there at Knoxville in that car. I ran second multiple times. We just struggled to qualify, and we had to start so far back. So it made it for tough to go up there and win some races, but we were always fast.
How special is that to still have those people around on your team now?
Oh, it's awesome to have him there. You know, Don Lamberti has been with me now 20 some years. Or 23, 24 years he's been a supporter of mine. And that's awesome to have a guy like him that has dedicated his whole life to sprint car racing also. You know, and then having Donnie as a good friend, and he comes down every night before the races, and we talk quite a bit, and we reminisce. It's a great time, and his old crew guys that Franklin Zini and Greg Warner, who had always worked on the car when I was driving it, come down with him. We just have a great time. You know, that's one of the things about this sprint car racing is it's so tight knit. Everybody's like a close family, really, and even though things change, you know, these guys still come around.
Yeah, it is cool because I was about to say that. I still see Donnie down there damn near every week. And I remember, you know, I've been seeing you since like I was a tiny little boy. So, and I remember he was there, you know, sitting up in the chair in the back of the truck and stuff. And, you know, you had your run in the 410 there. You ended up getting back into 360 with your equipment, and you won the 2008 track championship. What was the run up to that season and that season? I remember you had some really, really good battles with Greg Baker in the points. And if I recall correctly, didn't that one come down to the wire in
It
08?
came down, it definitely came down to the wire. It was Greg Baker and I and Brett Mather, who Brett Mather was just here in the shop with me today, him and his son Maddox. So, you know, Maddox is now going to be one of our crew guys this year. So it's kind of cool how some of the old competitors,
Full
their
circle.
kids now are starting to come and hang out with us and come to the races with us. But yeah, Brett Mather and I battled really hard all season long, and Brett took the lead. I took the lead back. Here came Baker. He took the lead, and it did come down to the last night. And I remember that night very, very well, because I had a shock come off in the heat race, and I don't know what happened, but the shock came off in the heat race. I had to come through the B main, and we had a lot of cars in that time at Knoxville, just like we do now. But I started tail of the B main, and I passed the guy for the final transfer spot on the last lap, coming to the checkered, and put me in the A main. And Greg Baker qualified well and was running really good. And so he started up front, and they threw that green flag. And I think I had a narrow lead at that time going into that night, but it was basically gone. And on the start of that race, I remember seeing Greg Baker in the air flipping. And I knew it kind of changed things, but we had Brett Mather there that we're battling with for the points too. So ended up, I think we charged up to the top 6 or 7 in the feature there. So we did run decent, and that put us as the point champion of the driver. But I ended up losing the owner points that year. Jesse Gianetto won the owner's points. He had put Randy Smith in his car one night. He missed it for a wedding. So he ended up winning it. So, you know, if Jesse was there, he probably would have really been the point champion.
Back in the day when you were racing like that, obviously in the heat of things, were you a big point racer, or did they just kind of happen how they happened?
It happened how it happened. I hated point racing. I'm not built for point racing. I was, especially in those days, I was too wild for point racing. I still remember that year. It might have been the next one, when I won my second one, but I still remember one of the nights I'm sitting there running third in the feature, and my car is good, and I held on to third because it would have been risky to kind of get myself up there, and battle with the guys that ended up was right ahead of me. It's probably your dad. I just, man, your dad and I were magnets to each other, it seemed like. But I just was like, I backed off and just held my own. And after the races were over on my way home from the track, I was so mad at myself for just taken third. And, I really think that I probably had a car that probably could have ran second, if not win the thing. But it was a good point night. And I decided I just didn't want to race for points after that, even though we were there every week. So we were racing for points, but it took the fun out of it.
I don't know why you'd back out around Josh Higday. He's pretty, he's not any crazy or anything on the racetrack, right?
My very first night of owning my own race car weekly, Josh and I started on the front row of the feature, and we go down into turn one, and Josh hits the inside berm, and we both go up into the fence upside down. So, like I said, we're always kind of magnets. But you know what? We had so much fun racing together. We raced hard against each other, real hard against each other, really. But we had a blast doing it, and we remained friends doing it the whole entire time. So that was always cool.
Yeah,
Anyone that
for
doesn't
sure.
know, Josh is not very good at running the bottom.
No,
Matt
no.
found that out on the heat race.
Right. That was the feature.
Oh, feature shit.
That
Even
was
worse.
first lap of the feature. Yep.
Okay. Well, fast forward, it took a little bit to get back to the championship box. 2017, kind of winding things down. You did get both. You got the owner and the driver that year, I saw. What was that like? Because like I said, you were kind of in the twilight of your career, I think it's fair to say. How... Couple questions. So, did you expect to keep clicking them off after '08? And after going through that gap, what was it like getting back to kind of the championship model that you had in 2017?
After '08, we still won races. We didn't win championships. We seemed like we were always there in the top five. And one of the things that changed was Clint Garner racing weekly with us is
True.
what changed then. I mean, Clint was so good and still is so good, and he is a good point racer. I mean, he's amazing at these points. Because he's good at time trials, he's good in his heat, and he's good in the feature. He maximizes the amount of points he can get all the time. And Clint does not make a lot of mistakes, and that blue 40 seems to finish all the races. And so it was really tough with Clint there. But we ended up winning the points that year because we racked up so many second place finishes. Never won a race that year, not one. But we ran second, and we ran third, and we ran fourth, and we ran fifth, and we ran second, and we were always really strong and contender every night. And Clint and I raced really hard with each other. And one of the things I think happened was we put Clint in a position he had never been put in before. He was down to us in points, but it was something where I think they were trying extra hard, and that was something they just didn't have happen before. But Clint was knocking those wins off, but I was knocking off top fives all the time. And I believe that's the same year Clint won the 360 Nationals.
I
And
think so. Yeah.
yeah. And we go out there, and because we were really good in time trials, and we were really good in our heats, and we were good in the features and finished all the races, that put us as the point champion. And it was narrowest margins again. Clint was right there. It came down to that last night.
Did it bug you at all not having to win that year?
I was getting ready to ask that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, it bugs you every year. You don't have a win, no matter where you finish in points. I mean, we're all trying for these wins, and they're just so hard to come by that it doesn't matter where the points came out. That was really awesome, and that was a not a goal. I mean, our goal is never to go out and win championships. Our goal is to win every race we enter, and then the championship will come. So, I mean, that's kind of how that works out. But
Looking back on both of those, which one was more special in the moment? I'm sure the first one was probably pretty cool, but the second one had to feel pretty damn good too, beating the 40 car.
oh, it did. Absolutely, it did. Because I don't know if anybody had beat the 40 car. I know Joey Beaver won maybe a year or two before that. But for some reason, I think Clint might have done some 410 racing that year, but didn't matter. Joey was solid that year, really solid. But no, I don't know if one was more special than the other. The first one was really, really cool, but the second one, you know, was awesome also. I mean, they're both great. I wish I would have won a race or two. The first one, I won 2 races that season. So it was, I think I earned it a little more than the second one.
So I forgot to ask you. We usually ask anybody that's had a win at Knoxville, what they remember about that night, that win, that race, and the famous right-hand turn. What do you remember about your very first win at Knoxville?
My very first win at Knoxville was a 410 show. And what I do
Would you have
remember
guessed
about
that? Would you have guessed
what's
it would
that?
come in a 410? Would you have
Yeah,
guessed
no.
that?
No, not at all. I mean, 410s are so hard to win there. I mean, it's so hard to run in the top 10 in a 410 race at Knoxville, let alone win a race. But that was in 2000, and that's the first year we were battling the weight rule. So the cars were so light back then. I mean, our seats were so much lighter because we didn't have full containment seats. We didn't have all these extra safety bars and all this steel that we put on and fire extinguishers and it just our cars were so light back then. And I still remember we won that race and we won it handily. I mean, it wasn't that close of a finish. So, and I think I led every lap of it. And we go to the scale and we were too light at the scale by 2 pounds. And my dad's a very intelligent man. He's like, hey, we can reweigh, right? And they said, yep. So they rolled us off, and Dwayne Roebuck was right there, and we turned the car backwards and put it on the scale the opposite direction, and we were 8 pounds over when we put it back on the scale because the wind's pushing down on the top wing. So it just created downforce sitting there. So that was our first one. And then we won a second one a few weeks later. And same deal. We knew we were going to be so close. And why we cut it that close, I have no idea. And it sucked cutting it that close because it's going to be tough when you get to the scale. So I'm trying to find any drop of mud on that racetrack over the cushion. I'm zinging the tires, trying to get anything up there. I'm going to the infield. Yeah. And we were a couple pounds over that time too. So
That's funny. What was
Looking
that
back,
first right turn like?
oh, that was absolutely awesome. I mean, that was really, really cool because never thought I would get into victory lane at Knoxville, and also at that time we knew we were done at the end of the year. So I didn't know what my future in racing was going to bring, if there was any future in racing. And, it was really neat. My son was there with us. So that he got a cool picture of him in victory lane with us. And, it was all of us guys that just tried really hard and, finally succeeded. We about won earlier in the season. I led the thing all the way to coming out of 4, and I choked. And I really choked. I came up on a lap car and I just was like, oh, I don't make sure this lap car doesn't get me. And Terry McCarl sneaks by me and wins the thing, and I end up second in that deal. That one stung, losing one that way. So it was really nice to win one.
looking back between 2008 and 2017, how much changed on the race cars between that time?
A lot of change on the cars. I mean, I was jumping around with chassis. I think 2008, I was running Eagle chassis. Went into Maxims after that, and then I ended up winning a J&J at the banquet. And in 2018, it was a J&J chassis, or 17 was a J&J chassis I won with. And that was actually one of my first new race cars I ever had. I just didn't. I didn't have new stuff. I just tried taking care of what I had. And I didn't have a lot of stuff, but you know, things changed a lot. The wings changed, the tires changed. That first one I was running American Racer tires when I won the first championship, and the American Racer left rears. I love those tires. They seem to fire off so quick, and they had a lot of grip to them. But the problem was about lap 15, those things started falling off. You really got all the good out of them. And so you really needed to hopefully get all your positions, and because you were going to be slowing down the last bit of that, where then they implemented the Hoosier tires. So then we're on the Hoosiers for the next one. And I don't think there was no advantage to it, the next one. And I don't know if the American racers were an advantage by any means, but they were a lot cheaper and I could get them a lot easier because they were in Independence, Iowa. I could go and get a batch of tires. So, yeah.
Jumping ahead a little bit here, but that felt like that's a good time too. I was on Dirt Vision a couple weeks ago and just was watching some old Nationals stuff, and they were talking about the different compounds and things for the tires. Do you think or I should ask, how much do you think the narrow tire rules have changed the way that we see sprint car racing today? Because it looked so much different back then, man. Like it was, I think it was like 1995 or something like that, and cars are different and everything, of course, but just makes me wonder if you have some choices for your tires that you could race. That's a big differentiator, it feels like.
Absolutely. I'm not big on the rules. I hate that we have a single tire, and I really hate that we have a different tire in the 360 class than the 410 class. I wish we would all just run the same right rear tire. It would save us. It would save me money by wheels and tires having both cars racing weekly. But I get it. I get Hoosier helps support the racetrack and 360, the medium right rear is what they have. But the things that changed on the tires so much is you look at our cars have more horsepower than they've ever had. Our cars they have nicer parts than they've ever had. We have lighter driveline stuff than we've ever had, but they're not going any faster. We're not even getting that close to the track records. The track records were a while back. Some of them, I mean, there's certain nights where everything just plays out perfectly, but those
Right.
cars back then seemed to be a little bit faster, but they also were harder to drive. These cars are when you get them right, they drive so much easier than what they did originally when we had really hard right rear tires and narrow right rear tires, and we didn't have good shocks back then. At least we didn't know what our shocks were back then. No one had a shock dyno. You just bought a set of shocks, you bolted on, and you either liked the feel of the car or you didn't, and then you go find other shocks in the trailer and you pull it out and you push it in. Okay, that one feels good, and then you put it on there, and we had no clue what those things were. So everything changed so much to where these cars you can dial them in so much better. But the other thing that's changed now is there are so many good cars out there. Every car is good. You
Yeah.
look through the pit area, the guy running 20th has as nice as stuff as the guys winning the races. And the guy running 20th might be the winner next week. So, and we have such good drivers out there. I mean, our sport is strong with talent, real strong with talent right now. Where before, you had all your guys that had money and they had equipment and they shined because of that. And that's kind of how that worked out. Or now everybody seems to have money backing them and have equipment, and everybody's talented now. So big changes.
Looking at it now, do you feel like we'll ever go back to some of those older rules to kind of unlock the cars from the racetrack? I feel like every year we kind of get more and more locked down, and there's always some advancement to our teams that lets us get more grip out of the race cars. Do you think they're ever going to make a rule to go back to kind of unlocking the race car and putting it a little bit more in strictly the driver's hands?
I don't think so. I mean, they got these cars now to where they're so safe. They're way safer than what they used to be, and that's a great thing. I'm glad they did that because I raced originally when I first started. We did not have full containment seats. We didn't have Hans devices, the fire extinguishers, any of that stuff on our cars. Where now we have all these extra bars welded in our cars to keep everybody safe, and they needed to do some stuff because sprint car racing was getting a little too dangerous. And but I don't know. I wish they would go to a hard right rear tire in all the classes and make you drive these things. Make it to where those things are just smoking the tires coming out of the corners. But there's a lot of guys way smarter than I am are going to figure out how to get their car to squat and get that thing stuck into the ground somehow. But when we started with this D3B McCurry right rear, that was the tire we had to run. I bought two of them, raced every night at Des Moines and every night at Knoxville, and I switched over to my second one at midseason just because I had a second tire. I'm like, oh, might as well start with a fresh tire for midseason championship. And that one was the one I ran the first half of the year was my spare. Now we're throwing tires away every single night. So you look in the pit area 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning after all the trailers leave, you can't believe the amount of tires that are there that everybody just throws out. And at
At
almost
least they're cheap.
$400 a piece. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, it's a lot of wasted money at this point.
Yeah, crazy. You would think, yeah. There's probably a lot more to that than we are not privy to. We'll just leave it at that, I guess. So after you stepped out of the car, Matt, you've had some pretty damn popular drivers that have driven for you, namely Davey Heskin, who is no longer racing with us at Knoxville. Missed that guy. What was it like? How did that come together? And then what was your time racing with Davey like?
Oh, you can only imagine what it was like racing with Davey. I mean, he's a big personality guy. He's still one of my closest friends. I actually was up in Minneapolis, met with him and his whole family. They came to watch my daughter play volleyball up in Minneapolis 2 weeks ago. So, I mean, stayed really close with Davey and always will. But I didn't know what I was going to do. I remember Randy Smith told me one day, he said, "Hey, when it's time to quit racing, listen to your body. Your body's going to tell you when it's time." And didn't know. I didn't know there was going to be a time. And I still remember in 2021, the last night of the season, I told my wife after the races, I said, "Well, that's it. It's over with." And she's like, "What? What do you mean?" I said, "Yeah, I'm done racing. I'm not going to race anymore." And she didn't believe me. And because I'd said it before that I was probably going to quit at the end of the year or something like that. But I was being serious. I was done. And I had loaned Davey Heskin an engine for the 360 Nationals that year. And he was battling for a point championship and told him after the Nationals, "Don't worry about getting it down to me. We'll get it back after the season. Concentrate on your championship." So we got the engine back from him, and he was here in my shop and we were talking, and he said he was done. He wasn't going to be racing anymore. He just couldn't, with the family, having 4 kids. At that time he had 3. But he said with the family and the distance, I mean, it's tough for him to come from St. Michael, Minnesota, all the way down to Knoxville every week. He just said he wasn't going to be able to do it anymore. And so I'm sitting here thinking, well, I mean, I'm just not going to be able to drive anymore. I love working on the race cars. So I asked him, I said, "Hey, what do you think about teaming up? If you want to drive, I'll work on the car. I'll get it to the racetrack. You just show up and drive and leave." And it was a perfect pairing is what it was. And I'm going to tell you, anybody that paired with Davey Heskin would be a perfect pairing. The guy's one of the most talented race car drivers I've ever seen in my life. He is so smooth, so good on equipment, and you don't even know where he came from. I mean, all of a sudden, 10 laps into the race, it's like, well, this guy is now all of a sudden coming to the front, and he just whittles away at that bottom and figures it out. He was so awesome to race with, and his whole family. His sister came down with us every week. His grandpa still comes and hangs out with us, and so does Sam too. But just the whole family is awesome to be around, and it was a great pairing is what it was, and it kept me involved. I didn't want to step away from the sport, and I didn't have plans of being a car owner. I really thought I was going to be selling everything and just going up, sitting up in the stands watching.
You're bit by that bug, man.
Oh yeah, absolutely, we all have.
For sure.
Yep.
Taking just a small step back, those first couple races, obviously your first year not racing, did you have any fear? We'll call it FOMO. I feel like everybody's going to know what FOMO means, fear of missing out.
Yep.
Did you have any feelings like that, not racing, but having a car there?
No, not at all. And the reason why I say not at all was because I never was nervous as a driver. When I got in the car, your brain shuts off and you're not nervous and you just go race it. I am a nervous wreck with owning these race cars. Now I get to sit there and watch these guys that put their faith in me on making something safe, reliable,
Yeah.
and fast. And did I get all 3 tonight? And then I get to sit there and watch the thing, and they go and push off, and it doesn't fire instantly as it comes by, and you're thinking, "Oh gosh!" And then you're running in your head, "Did I get enough fuel put in there?" And man, did we do the right changes on the shocks? And you have so much time to think about that while your car is out there on the track, even just on warm-up laps. And when you're a driver, you don't think of any of that. You're there to do one job and one job only, and you got what you got. You can't change it. Well, I'm sitting here second guessing everything while I'm in the pit area. So, and one of the things is I was so nervous on not giving them good enough equipment where I ended up getting two brand new cars for Davey when we fired up together. So, I never had two new cars. I barely had one car. Not that I lacked on equipment. I mean, I always had good equipment and decent equipment, but just not brand new stuff. I always tend to got people's leftover stuff or hand me down, which was good. But yeah, so then
One
it
with it.
changed. Yeah, absolutely. But rear ends, am I running a rear end too long? Am I running a front hubs too long? You keep that stuff just goes through your mind the whole entire time. So yeah, I had no doubt that I need to be out of the race car, and I made the right decision hooking up with these guys. And I still feel that way right now with Ryan Giles and JJ Hickle. I absolutely still love the role that I have with these guys. Otherwise I wouldn't do it. I'm not wealthy. I don't have the money to go and just throw everything it takes to at these things. I've been fortunate up with sponsorships, but I work all week long so I can get enough money to go racing on the weekends. And that's what I've always done, and that's all what I really always want to do.
Yeah, I it definitely is the most memorable thing that I have with you here in the last handful of years was that 2023 Hard Knocks night. I remember walking down pit road is right after Davey had just locked it into the Nationals, and man, you ran a lot last year, which we need to not do that again, okay?
Yeah.
But you were running towards towards Davey in the way line or whatever,
Yep.
the work area. Davey screaming, fist pumping, and you're jumping around. That was an awesome night. What did it mean for you to see your driver lock it into the Nationals?
Oh, that meant everything to us. That's the biggest race of the year. And, I've raced a long time and never put it in the A main of the 410 Nationals, and, never even really knocked on the door of it. I wasn't even close. And then our second try with Davey, he puts it in there. Now, Davey had made it before, and Davey ran really well in the 410 Nationals multiple times. But as a team, we were so down and out the night before on our qualifying night. We went out there and we had our best engine go down on us. So we ended up after the heat race loading up. We didn't even get to run the feature. And so we were all down and out. And then we go to Hard Knocks night and we drove terrible. We were starting clear back in time trials, and the Nationals, it's all about draw. There's very few people that can overcome that draw at the Nationals, but some can. Didn't think we were one that could. And Davey did it. Davey cut a really good lap in time trial. You only get one lap at the Hard Knocks night. He did a really good lap, and that put us in a good position. And then in the heat race, we were battling with you, Kade. And I think you had the position. If not, you were running us down, and it looked like you were going to get the final spot into that A main. And we ended up squeaking it out just to get into the A main for the Hard Knocks night. And then, like I said, Davey does what Davey does. The start of the race, he fell back probably 3 positions because he's battling to get to that bottom. He's going to work as hard as he can to get to that bottom lane. And then everybody kind of jacks around down there and gets balled up. But Davey just keeps it clean. And then he just methodically just works it and works it and works it. And, if you go back and look at that with 10 to go, I don't know, well, maybe 12 to go. I don't know if anybody thought we were even going to be a contender of the coming up there to be in that top 4. And then all of a sudden, here he comes. And then when he went by Parker Price Miller, that was huge. That was massive. And then to hold on to it and, put it in the A main. So we probably did one of the dumbest things we ever done racing that next night when we were in the A main of the Knoxville Nationals. Unfortunately, we start 24th. Kyle Larson's on the pole. We're going to be a lap car soon. I mean, you just know you are. We're in dirty air. He's in clean air, and it's Kyle Larson. So So we ended up getting a lap down. I think we're in 19th spot and we're a lap down. And at the halfway mark, Davey says to me, he's like, should we just pull her in? We can't really go anywhere from here. And there was no financial gain. And I'm like, absolutely not. We're not pulling this thing in unless you don't want to do it. Because, man, I've never experienced this. Let's do it. And he's like, absolutely, let's do it. So we start putting new tires on. He goes, and we're putting new tires on this thing? I'm like, hey, we're gonna act like we meant to do this, man. And we just kind of got a chuckle out of it. And so we put brand new tires on to go out there and race for 19th and 20th. And that's the best we really could do. But you know what? We still did it. And just so proud of everybody, the whole team. That was a very memorable moment for everybody, all of us. So yeah, it made it all worth it.
At least you got a
Hell
decent
yeah.
chunk of change with it being the Nationals. It definitely
Yeah,
paid for your tire bill, I feel like.
tires weren't a big deal at that point. Yeah, that's when you put it in the main, that definitely makes it to where it's one of the few nights it's profitable to go racing.
Yeah, for sure.
But we spend it all the
mentioned-
rest of the year.
Yeah,
No shit, right? You mentioned Ryan and JJ. I feel like those guys are like the perfect fit for what you're doing as well. Talk about just racing with those guys. We've had both of them on actually, which is cool. Got to talk to them both about you, and we heard a little bit of Ryan's story. And what's it been like working with those guys? And both are back this year. Is that correct?
absolutely. Yep, we got both of them back this year. It's been awesome working with them. And when you say they're probably the perfect fit, it really is. You can't have two more different people than Ryan Giles and JJ Hickle. Their personalities are absolutely opposite of each other, but it works out good because JJ's a big personality and JJ's a lot sometimes. I mean, he's excited all the time, and I've never seen Ryan excited. He's the same all the time. So, sometimes when you get the same personalities in a camp like that, it clashes. Well, it's no clash here. So it works out good. And, it's a lot of work, but it's all worth it. JJ, he's a gasser. He's always searching for something. He's always really hands on with the car. He wants to know what we're doing, and he gives his input a lot. And then Ryan's opposite. Ryan last year didn't even know his brakes weren't good on the car until JJ fired it for him. And JJ comes in and says, "Hey, his brakes are terrible." And I asked him, he goes, "Yeah, they're not great." Oh gosh, the guy won't complain about anything. But also, you got Ryan who doesn't tear anything up. He's like a Davey Heskin. But he'll move around that racetrack quite a bit. And one of the things that we're working on is getting him a little more aggressive. He don't have to fix this thing in the week. I do. So let's get aggressive here. You can stick the nose sometimes where it doesn't belong. We had a race last year where we got chopped pretty bad. And Ryan came in and as upset as Ryan could possibly get about it. He's like, why do they do that? And I'm like, well, because he let them. If I was in that car, we'd have two junk race cars out there on the racetrack. I just wouldn't. I'd keep my nose right in where it was. They're not going to be able to do that. And that was probably why Ryan Giles has been as good as he has and as far up in points as he has every single year. His stats and points are like unbelievable good.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah. So, yep, that's one of his deals. And JJ's again opposite. JJ's that guy putting his nose in places that sometimes it shouldn't go, but he's got so good car control that from where I'm standing was like, oh man, that don't look like a good idea, and he comes out of there. And he's just got really good car control, and his racecraft is really good, and he's working really hard on that. And JJ just works really, really hard on this racing all the time. But that's what JJ has to work on. Ryan's got 3 kids at home. So 4 kids at home too. So yeah, Ryan's got 4 kids. So he's got to worry about that stuff where JJ can worry about racing.
Having both of those two personalities, which one do you relate more to? Because I feel like you're like that perfect right in the middle. You have your moments you can get fired up, but you're still pretty calm and really collected, I feel like.
Yeah. I think my driving style was more of JJ's. where I was a little, man, I tore up a lot of stuff over the years, like lots and lots of stuff. And a lot of it was my own fault. I mean, not a lot of it, most of it was my own fault, just trying too hard, jumping cushions, jumping wheels, stuff like that. And JJ's probably the more my driving style. Now Ryan is probably more of, I don't know. He's more of the financial guy. You can tell he's a businessman. He's definitely got the business sense to him, and so they both work out good for me. But yeah, I think probably I'm in the middle of those two, where I never got as excited and I wasn't as social as probably JJ. JJ knows every single person at that pit area all the way up and down. And I stayed in my pit for the most part during the races. After the races, that was a different story. I kind of was a social guy then, but during the night. And then Ryan, he don't leave the pit. Ryan goes and looks at lineups and then he comes right back. So yeah, I'm probably right in the middle of those guys.
Yeah, thinking about it and talking about it more, yeah, it makes total sense about that. It was pretty sweet last year at the end of the season, really. You and JJ went up, joined the IRA for a weekend at Cedar Lake, and you picked up a freaking dub. And we're top 5, I think, on the Saturday night. It was the Jerry Richard Memorial at Cedar Lake. How fun was that weekend, picking up a dub and having a really good performance?
Absolute blast that was. Track that I had seen before, JJ had not. I went there the year before with Giles. I got him to go up there with me, and we were fast in the 360 up there the year before. We got our nose wing knocked down, but I think we still ended up we got our nose wing knocked down on the start going for the lead, and we ended up still running fourth with Ryan. So I kind of had a little bit of an idea setup wise on that track. But it's different. And it was a 360 opposed to the 410. It's Ryan Giles opposed to JJ Hickle. So complete different deal. But we drew late, like really late. And that's never a great idea or a great feeling when you draw late. And we went out there and was quick time by maybe 3/10 of a second. Went out there in the heat race. I think we ran second in the heat race. Went out there and I think we won the dash. And that put us on the front row of the feature. And JJ does what JJ does. He just absolutely railed that thing around there and just picked through those lap cars. And it was awesome. We had a little scary moment about halfway through. He got into the fence. Guy had a lap car slide up in front of him, and he got in the fence with the right rear. Absolutely destroyed a right rear wheel, but it held together. And he went on and won that thing and won it handedly. I mean, we were gone compared to the rest of them. I think at one time he had like a 7.5 second lead, and the yellow comes out, and then we get back to an 8 second lead, and the yellow comes out. So we were really good. And really, we were good the second night. But the second night, I have never raced in so much mud in my life. It had rained and rained and rained. And it was 5 o'clock at night. And there's standing water and like a river running through the pit area. And a smart man probably would have went home. But I didn't want to be that guy that goes home after we just won the night before. And so we stuck it out, and they canceled time trials, and we were not prepared. We don't have the equipment to run on these shorter tracks with this much mud. We didn't have the right offset wheels. We don't have the right shocks for the car. And we did what we could do. I mean, I've never in my life put 12 pounds air pressure on the right rear and left rear and then take the bleeders out and just go back out on run without bleeders. We're trying to free this thing up as best we can, everything we could do. And we still, I think we ended up fourth, maybe fifth in that deal. Came from like 13th. We were fast. And we actually were up to maybe third at one point, but bicycled really bad. And that was the case. I had a lot of the cars we passed were bicycling up, and then we just sneak up a spot. But we ended up bicycling and lost a spot or two there. But yeah, it was fun. A great weekend. It's always fun to go race other tracks, but then to win a feature, it's really fun.
How was that Sunday car wash? I know normally you wash at like 4 o'clock in the morning with us, but
Yeah.
how was that?
Yeah.
How was that Sunday car wash after all that mud?
So it was a Sunday car wash, but JJ was racing at Eagle the next day. So it was way delayed. So JJ and Brad, I told those guys just get in the truck and lay back and I'll get us home. And I trucked that thing home as fast as I could because JJ had to get home to his place to get his truck and trailer, didn't get his car to go over to Eagle. And so I got that thing. I pulled in the driveway. The sun was up. I think it was probably 6, 7 o'clock in the morning, and the sun is out. And so JJ could get going. And then, yeah, the mule still to this day in the shop is bleeding this red, orangish mud. It was so thick. I'll have to show you guys a picture of what this car looked like. JJ posted it. I took a photo before when he pulled in from the heat race, just so we could have a picture of this. You couldn't even tell that there was a front axle. It looked like this big long mud piece there. And then after the feature, the wicker bill, we didn't have a wicker bill on, but it looked like we had a 3-inch wicker bill on it from the mud building up on this thing. So yeah, it took forever to get this thing clean.
It's a good thing that we don't have that problem all the time at Knoxville. That would not
Right?
be fun. Want to be conscious of your time. I feel like we could talk all night, but I'd be remiss if I didn't ask. Your dad was inducted into the Knoxville Raceway Hall of Fame in 2014, and then you had that honor in 2024. Number one, what did it mean to you to be voted into the Hall of Fame, but also joining your dad in that with that honor as well?
Oh, huge. I don't even know how to explain getting that phone call saying that they're putting you in the Hall of Fame. I never thought that we were going to be someone that was capable of being in the Hall of Fame, especially when we started this thing. And you look at the names of the people that are in there, it was such a big honor. It made it worthwhile. There's been a lot of sleepless nights. There's been a lot of uh, sacrifices my whole family has made, and unfortunately, I've made my family have these sacrifices because of the racing, and they didn't have any choice into it. And but it made it all worthwhile. That's like just shows that your whole career, it made it work. You did something. You made an impact some way somehow. I don't know if I look at the names still on there. There's people I feel that are a lot more deserving of it than I am, but it's still an honor that the committee chose me out of that deal. And going in with a buddy of mine, like Don Drow Jr. That's really cool to go in with some of those guys.
Where
I
does that
know.
rank on the level, like compared to your track championships?
I'd put that above my track championships for sure. I mean that's the overall. That's everything that we did. That's 30 years of work at this thing. So I'd put it over those. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so I said the same thing to Skip Jackson. We had him on a few weeks ago, and you were always someone that you would never know if you had a great night or if you had a terrible night. Whenever, myself as a kid, Kade, I'm sure you saw him plenty as a kid growing up and stuff too. You always made time for us and for everybody, and I was giving you some shit here before we hit record that you had a pretty popular announcement post that people were really looking forward to this. You did leave an impression, and people are looking forward to this because of the person you were, and I think that's a reflection, on the off track stuff, and you had a great on track career as well.
Yeah, and I'm going to tell you with that, when you had a bad night at the racetrack, I mean, do you realize a bad night at the racetrack is better than a lot of people's best night they'll ever have? I mean, we're so blessed to get to do what we do in racing. There's very few people that will ever get to say that they drove a 410 sprint car, 900 plus horsepower on dirt in a half mile and made it in the 14-second bracket. I mean, that's like it's so tough to do and so few people get to do it that even a bad night, as long as everybody's healthy and safe, it's still a good night. I mean, there's no real bad nights. There's just not great finishes, but they're still good. They're still great. And the fans that come down, that's why we did this. If we didn't race in front of people, I had no desire to go and do this every week. It's the people we meet, the competitors, the other crew members, stuff like that, that makes it all worth it too.
The older I get, the more I start to realize that too. And I get caught up in the bad night thing sometimes, and Josh usually yanks me out of it pretty quick.
You're pretty good. By the time
Yeah.
that gate opens, you're pretty good.
Yeah.
I can't give you too much shit about that.
So one thing I got to tell you guys about Skip Jackson. So he is one of the nicest guys I've ever met in my life. And he talks about that Pennsylvania car that he came to Knoxville with and they bought the brand new engine. I'm the guy that junked him in the heat race.
Oh no.
Yep, I'm the guy. Skip started right behind me and he tried filling the hole between me and the fence. And I'll put a little bit on Skip. Back in that day, I don't know if I would go on the outside of me for any reason, but he tried, and I ended up crashing Skip there and felt so bad about it because he is the nicest guy I've ever met. And then the next thing is, I went to Australia this winter, and I watched those guys race, and how Skip Jackson was as successful as he was in Australia, I have no idea, because the guy is so calm and so nice and so smooth. And those guys over there are not. They are absolutely gassers, slide jobs, chopping noses. Just, it is chaos watching a sprint car race in Australia compared to what we have. And for Skip to be able to shut off and his niceness and go out and do that just amazes me.
Where'd you go? What track or tracks were you at?
So went to the Classic in Warrnambool, Bowl,
Nice.
and then went to Mount Gambier. So went and watched the Australian title both. So got to do both those tracks. Yeah, absolutely something everybody should do. It's so neat over there.
You mentioned FOMO earlier, Kade. We had some major FOMO going on during that, also during the High Limit International. Yeah, that's definitely a bucket list trip for me for sure. We talked about Brad up at Cedar Lake, Kade. I know you got some. We have a few questions before we let you go, Matt. You want to lead off with wing nuts?
Oh, great.
Yeah, wingnut. Brad Shear, he told me to give you shit. He says you always give him a hard time about when they do their reworks. I know that's just giving him shit. He said that this year they're going to have a nightly track rework just to piss you off.
Why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they? Yep, right. And I hope they do it right before. Well, they obviously will do it right before one of my cars goes out because we have them in both classes. But yeah, we're sitting there after the heat races and we're watching the B mains and we're watching the track and the cushion gets ledgy. And so then we start adjusting our car and we free it up a little bit for that ledgy cushion and we're all ready to go and pumped up and then we're going to rework the track and we're going to take that ledge off there, and now everybody gets to try and figure out now. And sometimes it makes it to where it's too fast and it takes a while for the track to get worked back in. I like those big ledgy tracks. That's the way we had to race way back when, a big thick cushion and you slam off of it, and that it was added character. It took a whole bunch of wild, just grit your teeth racing compared to when there is no cushion. So yeah, I give Brad crap every single day about that when I talk to him.
You have to. It's just in the in the fine print of being around Brad. You got to give him shit
because he's going to give it himself for sure. So.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
The next one's a pretty good one too. I was talking to Alan Dehigh yesterday.
Yeah.
He said that every night after the races, he'll come down and talk to you, and you always offer him a beer. And he says that, Matt, you just don't have enough beer for me. He wants to know when you're gonna stock the cooler full enough that he can come down and drink some beer with you.
He wants Jägermeister. He wants stuff that's he wants. I don't even know if the guy drinks beer. He drinks the hard stuff, and I learned a long time ago that stuff, nothing good's gonna happen. So yeah, so we're not putting Jaeger in our cooler, even for Alan.
He was drinking a beer when I saw him yesterday. So
he was okay.
It is confirmed. It is confirmed. He
a lot of times when he comes down after the races, he's pretty full, anyways.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Well, speaking of beer drinkers, we had another beer drinking fan that had a question for you. This guy named Jack Herway. Okay. He asks why or what motivates you to field 2 race cars each night and put in all of that work, Matt.
I don't know on that. That's a great question. It was a sponsorship thing is why I did the 2 race cars. but I enjoyed it. If it worked out good because it was two great guys that I'm racing with. If it was something that I didn't enjoy with these guys, it would have been real easy this year to just, hey, we did it one year and now we're going to shut it off and we'll just go race either the 410 or the 360 or whatever. But just because I got to know these two guys and got to become really good friends with them, and I enjoy their company, I enjoy them being around. I We're trying to get everybody to go to an Iowa Barnstormers game this weekend, Knoxville night at the Iowa Barnstormers, and we're trying to get everybody hooked up together for that. That's how much I enjoy these guys. Is just even outside of racing, I like hanging out with them.
That's this Saturday?
That is a Saturday. Yep.
Okay. So everybody check that out.
Yep.
Knoxville night at Iowa Barnstormers. I guess one last one to finish things out here. You're talking about your race team and the two guys that you got going with you. What does the future of Matt Moro Racing look like? Put you on the spot here.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say. I'm not going to go to the poorhouse doing this. That's one of the things. As long as I have some funding and we can make sense out of doing this, I'm not expecting to make money doing this, but I just can't go broke doing it too. So, that will change if sponsorship stuff changes, if results change to where we're not bringing in enough to keep things going. I mean, we're committed for the whole year. There's no doubt about that. For down the future, I mean, I never see myself leaving Knoxville, not being involved one way or another. Someday I really would like to have Jason Reed's job. Now, I think Jason's doing a wonderful job, and I think he's doing the best he can there, and I have no complaints whatsoever, and I don't want to take his job. Just, as I get older and, maybe retire from selling cars, I'd like to have a position in that racetrack of some sort, because I have some ideas that I think that would be okay there, you know. And I know Jason has ideas, and it's not just he can change anything. There's fair board members, there's all kinds of stuff that comes in, and but I would like to do that someday. I'd like to have a position there at the racetrack. So, I've been an owner, I've been a driver, so I kind of see what's going on in the pit area. I know there's so much that goes on in that office, though, that would be really, really probably a big eye opener on what all it takes to run a monster of a facility like that. But it'd be something I would like to do someday.
I think you'd be good at that. Got a lot more stuff that we could talk about, Matt. Like I said, don't want to take all your night. So you're going to have to come back now. I know it's been real tough for you here, just all these hard questions. But
yeah.
Love to have you back sometime. You're not really a social media guy, right? Is there any place that anybody that wants to keep up with you or your race team, or is it better off just following Ryan and JJ's racing pages?
Ryan and JJ probably. I do have Facebook, but I don't post on it. Tends to be too much drama sometimes. I do have a Twitter account, but I don't post on it. Now, I use those just kind of to watch. I like...
You're a lurker.
I'm a lurker. I'm just not much of a poster. So, yeah. So I do have those, but, JJ's really good at keeping everybody informed and keep stuff going. I'm just not. So, yeah, it's probably the old school of racing to where, I probably could have done a lot better sponsorship wise and all that by being a McKenna Hassey or a Brian Brown that is really good at their marketing side of the things. But it just wasn't me. I just don't like the drama on some of that stuff.
Yeah. Hey, there's plenty of times where it's like, why am I doing this? So
right.
The best way to support you, Matt, is to get their butts to the racetrack, buy a ticket, come see you after the races. You could, watch the 2M get to victory lane again. That'd be awesome. Well, Matt, thank you very much for your time. Like I said, it was a great conversation. Really appreciate you, and can't wait to see you at the racetrack here in just a couple weeks. We do have Sprint Car Nights tomorrow night with Buddy Kofoid. He had a pretty damn good weekend with the World of Outlaws. Can't wait to talk to him tomorrow. And then next week on Knoxville Nights, we believe Tasker Phillips, maybe. We'll see. He's been doing some racing. He picked up a win himself also down in Mississippi over the weekend as well. So make sure you're subscribed on YouTube. Hit like on this video. Create yourself a Dirt Vision account. Watch us for free on there as well. You can listen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all of your podcast platforms. And our socials are right below us for Kade and I. Matt is not going to answer you on social media. So thanks again, Matt. We will see you all next week. Thanks for watching Knoxville Nights.